Morning, lo and behold, it is 10:30. If you just got a notification that that you are giving consent to being recorded, it's a new feature on Zoom that we're living with right now. Please know that for the most part, we only record folks' faces when we're at the end and reach out our hands to do the benediction. For the most part, that's the only time folks are actually going to see your face. But it's good to see you all here this morning. It's good to be together. As we get started, let's just all take a deep breath in and out. Ground ourselves, center ourselves as we enter into worship together this morning. Our prelude this morning is an Alexis French piece from our fabulous music director, Brock Chesvold. Good morning and welcome to the First Universalist Church of Rochester, where we are called to nurture the spirit and to serve the community. Whoever you are welcome here. Wherever you come from, you are welcome here. Whomever you love, you are welcome here. And whoever you follow and whoever you lead, you are welcome here. We welcome all of you. It is good to be together this morning. Dear ones, if you are here for the first time or the second time or even the third time, we especially welcome you. Thank you so much for making your way to our virtual online worshiping space. We have a visitors form that can be found in the chat, and I invite you to just click on that link to fill out that visitors form at your convenience so that we can offer you a welcome beyond just what we can offer you here in this virtual sacred space. As some folks have already been doing, people have been popping into the chat and offering a good morning, a hello, a how are you? If you're here for the first time, please especially identify yourself there so we can welcome you in a special way. So please pop into the chat, say hello, say I'm here. We just want to hear from you and hear your voice and see your face. So welcome to worship at First Universalist Church. Our opening hymn this morning is actually one of my favorites, hymn number 155, Circle Round for Freedom, a song that really calls us towards justice. And also, I love the version of this song that was recorded by our music director, Brock, and Kitty Forbush and Ann Rohde in this a cappella round kind of a way. So please join us in singing. Even though we are remaining muted in our own homes, we are creating a song across our city of Rochester, our country, and the world. So let us join together in singing hymn number 155, Circle Round for Freedom. Da, 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 da. Circle round for freedom, circle round for peace, for all imprisoned, circle for release, circle for the planet, circle for each soul, for the children of our children. Keep the circle whole. Circle round for freedom. Circle round for peace. For all of us imprisoned, circle for release, circle for the planet, circle for each soul, for the children of our children. Keep the circle whole.
John Donne was an ordained deacon and Anglican priest during the late 16th and early 17th century, who was especially known for his devotions on emergent occasions, meditation number 17, No Man is an Island. This meditation was set to music, and words speak to his favorite theme, true religion. No man is an island. No man stands alone. Each man's joy is joy to me. Each man's grief is my own. We need one another. So I will defend each man as my brother, each man as my friend. I saw the people gather. I heard the music start. The song that we were singing is ringing in my heart. No man is an island way out in the blue. We all look to one above for our strength to renew. When I help my brother, then I know that I plant the seed of friendship that will never die. It is important to remember, after these long months of isolation, that we are not alone. We celebrate the joys and sorrows of our days as part of a congregation that cares. No, we are not islands. Come, let us worship together. As we light our chalice at First Universalist Church and in our own homes, will you join me in saying our chalice words in unison? May we be a people of welcome, here to grow in heart and mind and spirit, and may we reach out to serve our community. Please join me in our affirmation of faith, followed by our doxology. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve humanity in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the source and meaning of life, thus to be covenant with each other and with all. No man is an island, entire of itself. Every man is a piece of the continent, a part of the main. When we support this church, we plant the seeds of our beliefs into fertile ground, allowing them to continue to grow for many years to come. Please copy and paste the link in the chat to give online to First Universalist Church, or feel free to send a check to the church.
Good morning, First Universalist family. Today's story is not a picture book. It's actually written by one of our Unitarian Universalist ministers, Reverend Sunshine Jeremiah Wolf. It's called Super Tiny. So I invite you, if you like, to imagine as I read it what it would look like. Once there was a little girl named Amanda who loved to help other people. She helped her Papa David and Papi Caesar to clean the house, She raked up the leaves in her neighbor Jim's yard when he was in pain and couldn't do it himself. She tutored her friend Sarah in math. So when it came time for her class to do a project to help people in her hometown, she was excited. Teacher Mike assigned each student a community of people they should help. Some would help people living with illness. Some would clean out yards for those who couldn't clean out their own. Each project was a little different. Teacher Mike told Amanda that he would like her to help the people in Walden, the poor part of town, who are hungry. He said, you can do any type of service project you like, but I want you to help those who are hungry. Amanda couldn't wait. She thought all day about what she could do. When she got home, she told Papa David and Papi Caesar about the project. I want to make sandwiches and take them to the people who are hungry. Papa David and Papi Caesar and their neighbor Jim and her friend Sarah made 100 sandwiches for the poor people in Walden. The next day, Papi Caesar drove Amanda to Walden. She had placed each sandwich in a bag with a piece of fruit. She tried handing out the sandwiches, but no one really seemed interested in them. Papi Caesar couldn't explain to her why no one wanted the sandwiches. She offered them to people who were young and old, brown and white, friendly and rude. But the answer was always the same. Oh, I ate earlier, but thank you. Then she saw another little girl about her age. The little girl seemed to be watching Amanda, observing her with a look of laughter and curiosity. Amanda approached the little girl. Would you like a sandwich? The little girl looked at her for a moment and then said, aren't you going to ask me my name? Amanda was a little embarrassed. Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Amanda. What's your name? My name is Tiny. This name was clearly appropriate. The little girl was Tiny. Why are you handing out sandwiches? Tiny asked. Well, it is a class project. I was asked to help those who are hungry here in Walden. So my Papa David and my Papi Caesar and Jim and Sarah and I made sandwiches to give everyone. Tiny laughed. Well, we do get hungry here sometimes, but we never take food from strangers. Some of my neighbors go to the soup kitchen each evening. Tiny paused to laugh some more. Your teacher really asked you to help the hungry? Amanda was a little upset that Tiny thought this was so funny. Without really thinking, she blurted out angrily, well, what would you do then? She didn't mean to get so mad, but she really did not like that someone thought her being helpful was funny. Tiny stopped laughing and looked seriously at Amanda. You really want to help us? Amanda nodded, but didn't speak because she was still too mad. Well, we have a garden that the city gave us. They gave us seeds, but most of the seeds were bad or not food that any of us will be able to eat much of, like turnips. Tiny made a grimace. Yuck. Who needs 1,000 turnip seeds? Amanda laughed. Tiny explained that what they really needed were healthy seeds for foods her community would eat and tools to help dig up the land and water the garden. Tiny said that if Amanda really wanted to help, she could get her class and her dads and her friends to write letters to the city council asking that a grocery store be put in the neighborhood because the closest one was 45 minutes away by bus. Tiny and Amanda talked for a long time, and not just about the needs of Walden. They both liked to jump rope and sing songs and make bird calls. Papi Caesar spent time chatting with Tiny's mom, and soon the two families were friends. Amanda decided that her project would be to ask her church, her class at school, her family, and her friends to come down to Walden and ask the people what they needed. They helped the community get the tools and the seeds for the garden and shared in a big harvest meal in the fall. It would take a long time, but eventually they would help get a grocery store in Walden. They had a big festival to celebrate their success together. Amanda learned a big lesson that day. She learned that you cannot decide what people need help with. You have to ask them what they need you to do, and then do that. She also learned that sometimes if you ask a stranger what they need, you just might make a friend. Thank you.
Beautiful story, Rev. Michelle. Thank you so much. I always love the way that you tell our stories. Dear ones, I want to invite you into this reverent time of sharing in the joys and the sorrows of our gathered community. If you would like to, you can place a hand over your heart to be able to listen from this heart-centered place. As I place stones into this bowl of water, I will read aloud the joys and the sorrows of our gathered community, both those that have been sent to me in advance, and I will do my best to keep up with what's going on in the chat. I'll ask you for just a little bit of grace as I will try to catch them all. So this morning, a joy from Gail, Mosher, and Hal. We were blessed to love in person Leo, our newborn grandson, and his parents in Brooklyn. He grew before our eyes. Congratulations, Hal and Gail. That is wonderful news. From John Pelosi, a joy who is, sorry, John sending me that. From First Universalist, I think probably from Emma. A joy for a live story from Michelle today with such a wonderful and important message. Emma, you are so sweet. A joy from Steve Searles that his wife is doing better and able to eat full meals again. Steve, we are so glad to hear about that after hearing your wife was back in the hospital. We are so glad to hear that. From Eileen Fernandez, Jose and I became great grandparents this week. Oh, joining in your joy at that, Eileen and Jose, and just, wow, what an awesome piece to share with you. From Lois Baum, a message of just welcome home. Johanna, we are all with you. Johanna, we have been holding you, of course, in our thoughts after the really sudden death of your son, and we've just been thinking of you and praying for you and keeping you in our hearts here at First Universalist, and so glad you're back. Ooh, from Jacob Santos, a joy that the month of June being LGBT Pride Month, LGBTQIA Two-Spirit Month, we're doing it all here at First Universalist. I wore my stole for it as well, hey. This morning I also want to lift up a sorrow as well as an invitation. Today at 3:00 p.m., we will gather to honor the life of Jim Setnek at the Acorn Shelter in Durand Eastman Park. This will be a service that is in person and outdoors. To come, we ask that you RSVP in advance so we can keep track of folks for contact tracing purposes. If you have not yet registered to attend, a link to the form will be shared in the chat by our fabulous usher, John Pelosi. And our thoughts and prayers continue to be with Norma, with Martin, Beth, and Sean, their families, and all who knew and loved Jim. Dear ones, a sorrow from Jean Ott that Mrs. Ellis died this week, neighbor of the Ott family and mother of her husband Joe's best friend Mark while growing up. We are so glad you are able to be out there, Jean. That is wonderful. Oh, a joy from Michael and Kelly Scott, or from Kelly, I think is here this morning. Our daughter Shannon is doing well at her zoo school. We are very proud of her. A joy from Emma Berry to have celebrated the life of her grandfather last weekend with her family. It was emotional, but she was so grateful to have her partner and family around so we could all support each other. It was wonderful to see how well loved he was in his life and to have some closure since his passing last April. So grateful for that, Emma, and so grateful for all who are now able to gather to remember the life of someone that they have lost. It is such a relief and such a release to get to do some of that now safely. Dear ones, I will drop one final stone into this bowl to represent all of the joys and the sorrows that remain in the silent sanctuaries of our hearts. May all be held in the heart of love. This morning, as we do each Sunday when we gather, I will light our white candle to represent that we are still a community that is sitting with the grief, the difficulty, the joy, and the hope of recovery, of living in the times of COVID and coronavirus. Dear ones, may this candle hold all that is happening in our lives, all of the different pieces that we are facing and just engaging as we start to come back to being in person. May this candle hold all of the anxieties, the joys, the deep griefs that we have endured, the isolation that we have been through. May this candle be a beacon of hope and a reminder that we are not alone. So, dear ones, I'll just invite us into a time of prayer and meditation. And I'm actually really going to invite us in this time to take some time and space to go inward, to really drop down within. So if it feels comfortable to you, of course, take your hands away from the keyboard, rest them gently in your lap or on your thighs or however it feels comfortable to you. I'll invite you to close your eyes or soften your gaze as you feel comfortable. And I just really want to invite you to turn your sort of way of listening, your attention inward to what is going on inside of you. This morning, let us listen for and honor what we need. Let us get in touch with our heart's yearnings. What is it you desire? What are the things you wish for? We here have the power of choice, the gift of free will, the right to make our own decisions, the agency of desire. Sit for a moment and listen within. What is it your heart, your spirit longs for? Can you give voice to that longing? Share it aloud wherever you are, perhaps in a whisper or a shout, or even just a regular volume. What is it you need? Let us honor this morning our wants, our needs. Let us make them real and manifest in this world by speaking them aloud wherever we are. We are not wrong for having them. We are not undeserving of seeing them come to fruition. We are connected by accountability to a greater good. We are bound by the agreement to love one another to the best of our abilities. Bless the yearnings inside each of us. Bless the desires that have yet to be met. Bless the moments when we can articulate what we need. May we be heard. May our yearnings be honored. May we seek not to harm, but to heal. And may we know what it is we truly desire, allowing that desire to guide us forward, gently, patiently, in anticipation, claiming it. There is deep power in claiming it. May we know that power. Amen. Blessed be. May it be so. As we join in shared silence together, Let us ponder and reflect on the nature of individual desire and collective yearnings. Let us hold in our hearts and minds that we are in relationship in this shared community, and see if we notice any tensions within ourselves. Let us join in imperfect silence together, united by the silence in all of the places we are. Our hymn of contemplation this morning is a congregational favorite, hymn number 123, Spirit of Life. Let us join in singing from wherever we are. Our reading this morning is a reading about the eighth principle, the proposed eighth principle of Unitarian Universalism. And I wanted to just lift up for you this piece about where did it come from originally. And so this comes actually from the Eighth Principle Project's website. Paula Cole-Jones, who is both a district staff person and then a regional staff person for the Unitarian Universalist Association, and served as director of racial and social justice, developed the idea of the existence of two different paradigms in Unitarian Universalist circles. The first, the Unitarian Universalist Seven Principles, and the second, beloved community, deep multiculturalism. After working with congregations on these issues for over 15 years, she realized that a person can believe they are being a good UU and following the seventh principles without thinking about or dealing with racism and other oppressions at the systemic level. Evidence. Most Unitarian Universalist congregations are primarily European American in membership, culture, especially music, and leadership, even when located near diverse communities. She realized that an eighth principle was needed to correct this and called Bruce Pollock Jones to talk about some of the components that should be in it. Bruce put together an initial draft in 2013, and the two of them worked with a group of anti-racist activists in their district to refine and to sort of form and hone it. Bruce's congregation, the Unitarian Universalist Church of the Restoration in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, incorporated it into their covenant at that time. And then in May 2017, formally adopted it for themselves and recommended that the UUA, Unitarian Universalist Association, adopt it. Unitarian Universalists and the Unitarian Universalist Association have done very good work in fighting racism, such as during the Civil Rights Movement and in the 1990s, passing a resolution in 1997 after a precursor revolution in 1992 to become an anti-racist, anti-oppression, multicultural movement and organization. But the funding and support started to wane in the 2000s. Our accountability mechanisms failed us. Unitarian Universalists also have a mixed record historically in other areas of racial justice. Example given, we had people on both sides of abolitionism, including people like Jefferson, who was a slaveholder. And Unitarians were proponents of eugenics, leading to some of the racial extremes of Nazism and apartheid in South Africa. For people identified as white, it is too easy to ignore these issues, which is exactly what keeps the system of racism in our society alive and, in fact, worsening right now. We need to decenter whiteness and other dominant cultures in Unitarian Universalism. The eighth principle came from a feeling that we need something to renew our commitment to this work, to hold ourselves accountable, and to fulfill the potential of our existing principles. Therein ends our reading this morning. I will admit to you all, I grew up in a Unitarian Universalist congregation. I'm a child of the 80s and the 90s, and ever since I was a child, I can remember Unitarian Universalism having 7 principles. They have been defining for so many of us. They have become, in some ways, what Unitarian Universalism is. Originally, there were 6 principles that were adopted in 1986. The 7th, the sort of affirmation of the interdependent web of all existence, of which we are a part, came a few years later after some contentious debate, which I've been reading about. Very fascinating story. But these have been a guide for us. These 7 principles have been a guide for us. They are not dogma. They are not what we collectively believe. They are actually not even our theology. They are guidance for how to live and how to navigate this world as a Unitarian Universalist. And now an additional 8th principle is being proposed. We have not added to our principles since the 90s. And it's been proposed for the last few years. In order to talk about the 8th principle of Unitarian Universalism, I need to also first give you a bit of background. To talk about the present day, sometimes we must travel to the past, as a part of our reading did, and certainly filled in some of the history. And it is really important to know where we come from in order to know where we are going. In this congregation, we hold before us regularly some of the stories of the empowerment controversy that happened in the late 1960s and early 1970s. In the late 1960s, Black folks were organizing within the newly merged Unitarian Universalist Association for Black freedom, Black rights, and Black self-determination. Out of this organizing, the Black Affairs Council was formed to lead Black-focused programming and justice efforts within our denomination and to provide funding for Black-led initiatives throughout our country. They came together to demand funding for their work from the Unitarian Universalist Association. Funding for their work was promised, and some of it was paid, and then the rest of the funds were denied. over both a mismanagement of funds and a short budget on the part of the Unitarian Universalist Association, but also following concerns about what these funds were going towards in the broader community. See, this was about money and it was about power. From the beginning, there were racially based anxieties about these efforts and a good amount of resistance. As folks were approaching the microphones at our General Assembly to speak on behalf of the Black Affairs Council, they were hearing jeers and jabs, and people were being, I think I even heard stories of people being spat on their way up. Really, it was serious. The pushback was serious. And then when the Black Affairs Council found out they were being denied funding, they led a huge walkout of Black UUs as well as white allies. Some of these people left Unitarian Universalism forever. Some folks left for a time and returned. Some stayed and have remained to help our churches and our association work towards racial equity. Some stayed and got tired of doing that work and then left. The loss of a major portion of our Black community within Unitarian Universalism hurts us all and became both a source of shame, a place of hurt, and eventually an example of what happens when white folks do not truly trust and follow Black leadership, and when Black self-determination is not valued. It became an example for this denomination to learn from. And it is out of that learning that I want to invite us into this conversation about the eighth principle and eighth principle for Unitarian Universalism. Work has continued in our denomination towards racial justice. We have had program after program after program after program. Internal work, external work. I could give you a comprehensive history and picture because I literally wrote my thesis on a bunch of this stuff when I was in undergrad, but it would take the entirety of this sermon. And for the sake of this morning, I want to just invite us to move towards 2014 and the beginning of the movement for Black lives. Out of a national convening in 2015 for the movement for Black lives in Cleveland, Ohio, came Black Lives of Unitarian Universalism, an organizing collaborative whose mission it is to lift up Black voices and to create intentionally Black worshiping and dialogue spaces for Black people within Unitarian Universalism. This group has been instrumental in the development of the eighth principle of Unitarian Universalism, of course, as well as and alongside the work of Paula Cole-Jones that our reading highlighted this morning. The proposed eighth principle of Unitarian Universalism states, "We, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote, journeying towards spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and our institutions." I'm going to repeat it again. "We, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote, journeying towards spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and our institutions." This morning, my intention is to lift up the importance of this principle and to bring to your attention that what Black Unitarian Universalists have been asking the broader denomination to do. One of the downfalls for many of us not being involved in the larger denomination is that we do not get to hear from denominational Black leadership. We miss out on that opportunity. Also, I want to explore just a bit of the theological support for this principle and where we can go from here. Congregations across the United States are adopting the eighth principle and using it as fuel for their work towards racial justice and also towards addressing oppressions of all kinds. I am wondering if we here are prepared to engage in a conversation about whether or not we could be one such congregation. I just want to lift up this morning for you all that our siblings over at First Unitarian Church are gathering today to take a vote at their annual meeting about adopting this eighth principle. In an interview with Paula Cole-Jones, she asks a room full of Unitarian Universalist, Black, and Indigenous people of color what it means to them to have their congregation adopt the eighth principle. And I want to lift up some of those voices this morning. From Shannon Lang from the Unitarian Church in Evanston, Illinois, for me, it is the difference between just kind of resting on our laurels and actually taking action. I think some of the reasons why I've heard that certain congregations have not adopted it is that they feel that other principles cover it, but it doesn't. It absolutely does not cover it, because that eighth principle is about action. It's about dismantling racism. That takes action. And it talks about doing it within the institution. That's our institution. And so it's about doing the work that needs to be done that you think that you're doing, but sometimes you're not really doing. And so by you adopting this principle actually shows that you really do love and care about the community. So you say that you want more people of color to come, that you don't understand why we're not there, that you want us there. You don't understand why we used to be there and we're not there anymore. Well, if you are not adopting this principle, or you're voting on this principle, or you're voting against it, I cannot comprehend why congregations have voted against this principle. That to me is going against every single one of the other principles. That's not love. This is action to me. And then from Dorian Coulter, who is a 16-year Unitarian Universalist from the Unitarian Church of Baltimore. The main difference for me is that I knew intuitively that I was very well loved in my congregation. But for them to adopt the eighth principle was a tangible expression of that love. It means now I can hold them accountable for doing the work of the eighth principle. And the fact that not only did they adopt the eighth principle, but began immediately by doing the work of the eighth principle and harnessing changes in the congregation, in the attitudes and the minds of members of the congregation, it has given me a brand new congregation that I feel a part of, and it's my congregation. And just one more from Leon Spencer, who is a retired Unitarian Universalist minister and a friend of the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Statesboro, Georgia. He shares, we have a Black Lives Matter sign, and the Black Lives Matter sign, if we are going to live what we advertise, I think you have to look closer at the documents we have within the church. And I think it's very important that we adopt an eighth principle. The discussion around adoption of the eighth principle, we said we weren't going to deal with it at this time. It was put on hold. For me, I'm at a point in my life where I really don't want to put justice on hold. I don't want to put identity on hold. And when you talk about being anti-racist, you talk about dealing specifically with racism. You're talking identity issues. Who are we? And it's so lonely in a sense. So I can go out to other places and connect and be with activists. I can, but I'm really talking about my own identity and how it is that we attract people to be a part of that process. And he goes on to share that because of putting this on hold in his congregation, some people of color who were members are no longer there after this decision, and others are still sticking it out and staying in the conversation. I share these this morning because I feel like it's important to honor what this principle means to Unitarian Universalists who are people of color and who are also Black. I feel like this is important in light of the main message of our story this morning. This principle is being proposed as a whole. Folks are not looking to wordsmith it, or to edit it, or to change it. Folks are asking that we adopt it. And it feels important to honor that articulated ask, rather than telling folks what they need, or how they should have written it, or how they could go about it, or what we think they might need. Unitarian Universalism has 6 sources on top of our 7 principles. These sources are a guide for what we do believe. They are statements about the theological sources we can collectively draw upon to affirm the beliefs that bind us together. The second source of Unitarian Universalism is words and deeds of prophetic people, used to be women and men, now people, which challenge us to confront powers and structures of evil with justice, compassion, and the transforming power of love. Each one of these people who I have quoted this morning firmly rests in the prophetic, in the ability to look towards a Unitarian Universalism that is truly multicultural and multiracial. These are the folks who are here now in our congregations, many of them serving in multiple capacities and in leadership, and whose eye is towards what could be. The strong threads woven through all of these prophetic messages are the expression of love, and ask for accountability and the desire to move towards action. I want to focus on this love first and foremost, this valuing of life, this decision to honor the love amongst us. I do see love as a choice that we make each and every day, a choice whether or not we choose to accept love from another, and whether we choose to give love or express love with another. We use love as a guide for our decisions and as an anchor point in our lives. Is what I am about to say in line with love? What would love call me to do in this situation? Where does love for my neighbor inspire me to act? I saw a meme last night that said, "You cannot love your neighbor while supporting or accepting systems that crush, exploit, and dehumanize them. You cannot love your neighbor while accepting less for them and their family than you do for you and your own." That was from Carlos A. Rodriguez. Love, universal love, is our theological inheritance as Universalists. And it is this love of humanity that we all believe in that must be the anchor point for our work for justice. We do this work not because those of us here who have privilege have something special to offer someone who is racially marginalized. We do this work out of a sense of love for our neighbor, for our common humanity, and for our community. We do this out of a sense that we are better together, held in loving bonds with one another. And this isn't the kind of love that is hearts and roses and rainbows all the time. This is no Valentine's Day, box of chocolates and bouquet of flowers love. That's not what I'm talking about this morning. To decide to love our neighbors is hard work. It means risking disagreements to share our own truths. It means caring about others enough to see where my actions and words impact their lives. It means standing by someone even at risk to our own safety and sense of comfort. Again, you cannot love your neighbor while supporting or accepting systems that crush, exploit, and dehumanize them. You cannot love your neighbor while accepting less for them and their family than you do for you and your own. It is one thing and a great first step to get a Black Lives Matter sign on the outside of one's building. The next steps are to then align the church and the community with truly moving into the meaning behind putting that sign out. Because if a church has a Black Lives Matter sign out, but when Black folks come to the church, they do not feel respected or valued or even planned for and anticipated, welcomed truly and fully, what is the actual function of that sign? Why did the church decide to take that risk in the first place? The accountability of the eighth principle is one that asks us to truly take action, to dismantle racism and build a racially diverse, beloved community. The term beloved community is rooted in the vision of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who spoke of a community where it wasn't about people of like minds, but rather about people of many different opinions and beliefs being able to gather, to be together. At the center of this community is a common understanding of the love that binds them together, love that holds and values and sees all differences, a love so strong it keeps us at the table even when we disagree with one another. A love that calls us towards authenticity and towards deep truth-telling. A love that does not think that we are all alike. A love that values the gifts and the beauty of difference and diversity. That beloved community is no community of like-minded people coming together to feel comfortable. It is the vision of a community where we are able to be together in the midst of our differences and to be truly valued in the ways that we are not all alike. that our experiences and our ways of moving through the world are different. Dear ones, I believe that this is the vision for this community. And I look forward to more conversation in the months and weeks ahead about whether or not we can adopt this principle ourselves. The time is now. To put off the conversation causes harm to people who are already here. And it causes harm to those who are not yet here and a part of this community. Let us look towards the future of First Universalist Church and commit to building beloved community together. I commit to that with you, and I hope you will commit to that with me. Amen. Blessed be, and may it be so. Dear ones, we have to finish this service by singing Harry Belafonte. It's just how it has to go. So we are going to sing hymn number 1074, Turn the World Around, as we are certainly in this process of shifting and turning our own worlds around, one eye inward and one eye outward, as our racial justice consultant, Melissa Parrish, would remind us. So we invite you to remain muted and sing out joyfully from home, again, creating a collective song from wherever we find ourselves. Hymn 1074, Turn the World Around. Dear ones, as we extinguish our chalice, both here at First Universalist and in your own homes, I'll invite you to join me in our chalice extinguishing words. We extinguish this flame, but we keep its light in our hearts with its message of love and justice, taking it outside these walls to the world we live in until we are together again. I'll invite you now to turn your screen into gallery view so we can all just see one another. We need to be able to see one another this morning. Reminding ourselves of this call towards love and justice that we just articulated together as our chalice extinguishing words. I'll invite you to reach out to the edge of your screen. If you are here joining us by phone, place a hand over your heart and think of someone that you love. Dear ones, as you go forth this day, may we know that our justice must be grounded in love, that our justice must be grounded in the leadership of those most directly affected, that we must move forward into conversation and risk what it takes to build beloved community together, to build beloved community towards our future. May you know that you are loved, and may you go and bring that love wherever you may travel this week, these days. Bring that love to whomever you encounter. Amen. Blessed be, and may it be so. Dear friends, I understand that this morning I have asked you to make a commitment, and I want to just follow our benediction with the words and invite you to follow our benediction with the words in the chat. I support Black leadership in Unitarian Universalism. Let us make that a reality as we write those words together. And as we enter into our postlude from Brock, Spiritual Connection by John Baptiste from the movie Soul.